So, yeah, I really enjoyed your documentary, guys. I mean, I actually thought I already knew a lot about Devo from interviewing you guys and following your career for so many years, but I learned a lot more. So, I never knew how you guys met with the kind of the best opening line, pickup line for a bandmate recruiting another bandmate, which was, "What do potatoes mean to you?" Is that so? I actually don't know if that question was ever answered.
Well,
Well,
many times.
yeah, I think so. Yeah. There's plenty of proof of concept after that.
That is true. Well, what do potatoes mean to you?
Just about everything.
All
It's a
right.
it's a universal kind of symbol of, the common man,
Okay. Well, there's
right?
a lot. I'm sorry. Go ahead and
Yeah, I
elaborate.
mean, really, just underappreciated but very necessary, and harboring aspects and talents that, usually aren't acknowledged.
Okay. I have new appreciation for potatoes. Is that why do you think when Weird Al sort of did his spoof of your style with Dare to Be Stupid, there's a key line in that song, mashed potatoes could be your friends. So maybe he picked up on that.
Yeah, he definitely is a guy that traffics in stupid, so he's good at that.
Well, okay, more seriously, I mean, obviously there's a lot of humor in everything you do, but there's a lot of serious stuff too. And one thing that really struck me that you said, Jerry, at the beginning of I believe it was you said it at the beginning of the documentary was you guys were raised in a time in the 50s after World War II where there was this optimism, like a promised future. There was going to be like a lot of progress. And,
Yeah.
the future was so bright, you had to wear shades and all that. I kind of feel kids of the 70s and 80s maybe thought that too. We had Free to Be You and Me and Schoolhouse Rock and, all these kind of shows that basically the Root stock miniseries, all these kind of shows that showed that things were better now than they used to be. And, here we are.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, the 80s were kind of the end of it. It's like there was still a bubble of freedom and individuality and diversity in the culture that was real, actually. Uh, and then it was over.
well, that's kind of interesting that your ascent and the time when you were having your biggest hits was that time when Reagan came into office. So, what was going through your heads when you were trying to put your message out, but there were already things kind of happening that were showing things were not going to go so well in the world?
Yeah, well, we definitely butted heads with the prevailing culture during New Traditionalists because we were talking about that. We were talking about what you said. And there was this empowerment of all the evangelicals, and we were skewering that the way, you know, Trey Parker and Matt Stone might skewer it, right?
Mhm.
I just
Uh,
watched South Park's most recent episode last night. I'm obsessed with the new season.
we had their same sensibility. We love those guys.
So, I guess another thing that I mean, I've just kind of cherry picked things that stood out to me. Your doc also opens with you guys expressing frustration that the message or messages you had were not necessarily being understood at the time. I believe, Jerry, you say that you declared Devo the most misunderstood band of all time or something like that. So, I guess what do you think is the biggest misconception about the band and also like how possibly this documentary might finally clear anything up?
We just kept saying what we've been saying in the documentary, and people finally listened to it and reprinted it. Back then, they didn't even want to hear it, and then they wouldn't even print what we said. Mark and I were always articulate and straightforward. And then we'd read the interview, and it's like, we might as well not have spoken. They made stuff up.
Oh,
You
really?
Yeah. And that's why we were accused of being clowns, and then we were accused of being Nazis, and we thought that was hilarious. Like, okay, Nazi clowns, yeah. You know,
Wait, you were literally accused of being Nazis. In what
Well,
context?
yeah.
the outfits, they were like, oh, they're all wearing matching clothes. They're all wearing the same thing. They're all
Yeah.
wearing matching suits as opposed to wearing matching blue jeans, which is what everybody that was complaining was like there was more people wearing blue jeans than wearing
Yeah,
we were wearing.
it's hilarious. They accused us of some kind of like totalitarian conformity when it was them that had this conformity and we didn't fit into their conformity.
Yeah, that's actually something that has struck me, not just while watching this documentary, but just in general, is sometimes you haven't revisited in a while and you see something that at the time seemed weird or far out to you, and then you look at it decades later and you're like, oh, that's actually kind of quaint. I can't believe that was actually considered shocking or avant-garde at the time.
I know,
But with
I know.
Devo, it actually you see it, 4 decades later or whatever, and you're like, oh yeah, that still's pretty weird. Like your
Yeah,
stuff is held up in that way.
yeah, yeah. It wasn't just of its time. It was something that withstood the test of time beyond when it happened.
So when you set out to make this documentary with Chris Smith, who's great, by the way, I liked his Wham documentary a lot too. Very different documentary, but also great. Um, did you have an agenda, I guess is, I don't know if that's the right word, but were you like, okay, we're gonna set the record straight about what people didn't get back then?
I
Well,
mean,
we said what we say, and he put it together in a pretty interesting format. I think it's easy for people that don't know about Devo to like look at this documentary and go, oh, that isn't, they were different. They did do something different and they were about something other than sex, drugs, and rock and roll. They had a message connected to them.
Well,
I
yeah, it's
that's
an
Yeah, I
introductory
think he did
course.
a good job of putting that together.
Yeah, introductory course in Devo because he might have asked, 30 questions, but from those 30, three of them appear in the edit, the final edit.
well, we'll have to get the Get Back style 9 hour edit of it out there at some point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Actually, when you say sex, drugs, and rock and roll, that's a funny thing to bring up. Is one thing I did not know until I saw this documentary is that you had a couple of videos, namely or notably the That's Good video, that actually were either banned or criticized for supposedly being sexual when it was not even about
Yeah,
TNA or whatever. It was like fries and donut. Like it's bizarre to me. I mean, what was going on in MTV in the 80s was, whether it was a Motley Crue video or whatever, like there was a lot of sexy videos happening, like ZZ Top videos or whatever. And
Well, I mean, if it was
somehow that,
blatantly misogynistic and dumb, they didn't have a problem with that. But we had something that was to them symbolic and humorous, so they were really disturbed by it.
what did they tell you? Did they literally not play the That's Good video? I mean, they obviously played the
That's
Whip
right.
It video, which I could
yeah.
maybe see them having a problem with, to be honest. But just because it was, maybe had some S&M overtones. But like, did they literally not play the That's Good video at all because it had donut French fry
What happened was
coitus?
they rejected it and said we had to re-edit it. And the way MTV worked, bureaucratically, we re-edited it. We got rid of the French fry going through the donut. And and then by the time they reprogrammed it, our song had dropped in the charts
Mm.
so that Les, whatever his name was, the video commissioner, then he called me and said, we're dropping this, Casale. You're going down in the charts. And at that point, they had tied their playlist to the Billboard 100.
Hmm.
And so they quit being the innovators they were and quit presenting music videos as an art form. It was just about radio and commerce, and videos were just promo.
Right.
Yeah, which is a shame because obviously, I mean, I thought it was hilarious to see in the documentary how when you guys wanted to do videos in, I guess, probably just a few years before MTV happened, your label didn't think it was worth doing. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
They were confused why we even wanted to make a film to
yeah.
do the song. They're like, what do we do with that?
They were almost like they felt sorry for us or irritated by us. Like these guys, man, they're so weird. You know, they wanted us to spend it on our discretionary money on in store displays at record shops, and which was what was the mainstream thing at the time, like cardboard stand-up displays and things like that, and bigger posters. And we wanted to take $5,000 and make a video.
I mean, money well spent, I think. Obviously, maybe you guys didn't get, with the exception of, I guess, maybe Whip It, like in the charts as much as I think you should have. But I mean, you got pretty far, pretty successful, definitely mainstream, considering how weird you were. I mean, were you surprised by that? Did you always think you were sort of gonna stay underground? Or I kind of get the impression that your goal was actually, as I think you say, like to infiltrate the mainstream and get as big as possible and be on, daytime talk shows and in scooter ads and whatever else.
I mean, I can only speak for myself, but that was always
Yeah.
what driving any decision I was trying to make and anything I was being a cheerleader for. I mean, I remember it was Melody Maker or New Musical Express, some snarky reviewer that didn't like Devo called us thinking man's kiss. And at the time, I was really offended and really bummed out by it. And 20 years later,
Thought
when I
about
thought about it, I thought,
it.
God, I wish it had happened that way, because that means that a band that isn't dumb could have been as big as Kiss with their message.
Thinking man's kiss. I guess I sort of see where maybe he was going with that, but I mean, it's
Well,
an oxymoron. No offense, kiss. But I
yeah,
mean, that's
it's a
hilarious.
Nazi moron.
Oh my God. Um, well, obviously your music was always a form of protest, which if people didn't figure that out then, I assume they have figured it out now. The documentary will make that clear. And your art was obviously, it started visually, but was there ever a time when you considered maybe going, the more straight ahead, like on the nose protest route? I mean, kind of like, your friend, you were at Kent State, which is in the
Yeah,
documentary, and Ohio, your future friend, Neil Young's Ohio is like a classic
yeah,
song. No, everyone can
yeah,
figure out what that's about. Like,
yeah.
did you ever think about going like more, I guess, just like, let's just do straight ahead protest music and then everyone will figure out what we're trying to say?
Yeah, but I think we make the point in the movie that by being at Kent State and seeing what happened when you protest in the U.S., we didn't really think protesting was the way to go. We didn't want to be nihilist. We
Mm.
didn't want to be the Clash or Sex Pistols or somebody like that. Our interest was to infiltrate subversion, use subversion to affect people, and so we adopted the techniques of Madison Avenue.
Seems Neil Young got the message though.
Yeah,
Straight.
I think, look, there's protest and there's protest. I mean, listen to Freedom of Choice, listen to Beautiful World. It's deeper than being a on one side or another, like any given issue. What we were going after was the duality of human nature and the dark side of human nature being the real threat on this planet, like stupidity.
Right.
And people on either side at any given point can be the problem. This was bigger than two sides.
Do you sort of see, it seems like you sort of got a reputation in the business or like at your record label, at least for being difficult. Um, was that deserved at all, or were you kind of proud of that in any way?
Any
Hmm.
artist I ever loved was difficult because they were trying to stick to their guns about their identity and their brand, right? And you're going to butt heads with business if you're trying to do that.
What about you, Mark? Do you wear that as a badge of honor at all?
Well, I don't think we were yeah, I mean, there was a side of us that was like that was acerbic and difficult for people to deal with. And maybe we could have done that differently. But like Jerry said, we stuck to our guns. We always have. We've been, like our, we've always talked about humans being the unnatural species, the one species in nature that is out of sync with things. And uh, it does get frustrating when you have something you're thinking, and then there's people that all they're looking for is more record sales, or tonnage. They're just looking for.
We weren't trying to cause trouble. That was not our goal. Like, go back to That's Good and the French fry and the donut. We didn't like, we did that because we were amusing ourselves and exciting
We thought it
ourselves.
was funny.
It was.
We thought it was hilarious and cool, right? We were shocked that they took it the way they did. And so you're you're surprised.
Oh,
Sucker punched. And then, yeah, we said, we don't want to re-edit it, right? And they
Yeah.
went, well, then screw you. So we gave in and edited it. But their takeaway would be, oh yeah, they didn't like what we made them do.
but they were cool with the Whip It video. They didn't want an edit of that. They weren't like a little
Sure, if
less whips.
you were hurting a woman. You were hurting a woman. That was okay.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
Think of the
sure.
80s. Think of the misogyny. Think of the prevalent imagery and the position of women in rock. Come on.
What year did That's Good come out again? Remind me what year that
That's
was.
good. 1982.
Okay, yeah, I'm thinking. I mean, I think pretty sure Motley Crue were on the air by now, and or
Oh
whatever, some
yeah.
metal band with women in cages or
Oh yeah.
whatever. I'm sure there were lots
That's
of women in cages on MTV in that year. So yeah, that's
oh yeah.
there you go. Actually, speaking of that, I think it's kind of interesting. Mark, you were just saying something about alluding to label wanting a hit, another Whip It or whatever. But I think it's interesting to me that when they were demanding a hit, they thought it was going to be Girl You Want, which for the record is actually my favorite Devo song. So I kind of understand why they thought that. Uh, they did not expect that it was going to be Whip It, which is, I mean,
That's right.
Oh,
did
yeah.
you
No,
think it was going to be? Were you like, this is the one?
no,
Or
We did
no.
by the third album, we kind of were not sure what to think. It's like we just did what we did, and tried to be as true to that as we could. And uh, Whip It happened for a reason that makes sense to us, but we couldn't have predicted it.
what's the reason that
We only
makes?
put things on the record we liked, right? So
Mhm.
we put our 12 favorite songs on a record. And when they said, we're running with Girl You Want, we thought that's great because we like that song, right? But we didn't write that like, okay, this is the hit.
Yeah, we never thought of our songs that way. Um, we never, yeah, we were just doing things that interested us, and that we felt compelled to do.
I
And
do.
then when it wasn't a hit, they turned their backs, right? It was like, okay, we spent on any money we were going to spend on these guys and it didn't work. And then it was Cal Rudman down in Florida that turned it around for us. Well, he was pushing Whip It, you know, as a guy that had a lot of power on the airwaves then before, you know, Clear Channel and all that stuff. And he grew it from a regional thing straight up the coast, and when it hit New York, it went national.
Oh, wow. There's so many stories that don't, as you say, don't exist now, but there are so many stories I could think of where it was one DJ who had control of what he or she could play, usually he, I
Yeah,
guess.
And,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, and Cal liked it for all the wrong reasons, but that was fine with us. It's like if we would have met Cal, we would have got absolutely no way he would ever be the one that would
did he
uh,
like it because he thought it was,
a
sexual
good
in,
dance song. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
cool dance song. That was it, and he wanted it to be a little bit different than and it was probably in some ways maybe to him it sounded like the closest to what he was playing in discos at the time that people were
Mm.
dancing to. So.
I don't think this is actually in the documentary, but I've heard the story before actually from you, Mark, about the pamphlet that inspired Girl You Want. I've seen it. The little like I don't know if it was a pamphlet or if it was like a little like
Yeah,
book.
it was a little pamphlet out of some religious shop in Scotland, and it just had a cover of "Just the Girl You Want It" set on it, and I just caught my eye, so I had to go in and pick it up.
Yeah, I think you did something at the Sunrose where you held it, and it was this kind of like, yeah, religious propaganda, I guess. Yeah, it's pretty
Ah,
cool. So obviously we're talking a lot, and in the documentary, it's talked a lot about how there were people who maybe didn't understand or support Devo, but you did. I mentioned Neil Young a minute ago. You did have support from kind of some of the older rock guard who did get it. And I knew that David Bowie had supported and championed Devo early on, but that footage of him introducing you, like, remind me where it was, but he introduces you and basically
Texas,
says this.
Texas, Kansas City
New York.
in November of 77.
Yeah.
How did that come about that he basically, I can't even imagine that, like in 1977 this icon David Bowie comes out and is like, hey, everybody pay attention to this is the future. I mean, fans would dream of having something like that happen.
And yeah, it wasn't, we didn't have a manager that called him up and said, get over there, nothing like that. It was just purely organic. He had, at the time, uh, we'd played a couple times already in New York City. And we used to, because we made films at the very beginning, we'd hang up a sheet and we'd pick up a projector, a 16 millimeter projector from the Akron Library, bring it with us to, CBGB's, Max's Kansas City, set it on a table, and we'd show, the Chuck Statler's The Truth About De-Evolution that had two Devo songs on. And people would say, you got to go see this band. They put out a projector and they show them playing songs before they start, and then they come out and they play the songs. And so we had these guest lists of all people we didn't know that were loaded with, like the Dennis Hoppers and and the Jack Nicholsons and Rolling Stones and people that we'd never met that all just were all curious back then. It was like it became we kind of became a little phenomenon in a way in 77 in Manhattan, which was totally opposite of um, like getting a job at a club in Ohio at that time. We would have to lie and say we did all top 40 music, and then after the first set, they'd ask us to leave because
Oh, you literally did that.
Yeah,
oh yeah,
there was just this wave of, there was a wave of interest and a groundswell of, bubbling under kind of talk, before social media, right? I mean, there's so many vectors in play there because David Bowie was playing keyboards for Iggy Pop on his Idiot tour. So in March of that year, uh, Bob Mothersbaugh and I went to see him in Cleveland, and collectively we got tapes backstage and into a basket on stage, and Iggy Pop actually listened to Devo. He listened to it and he loved it, and he gave it to David because David had supposedly told him, hey, if you ever hear anything interesting, I want to know. And so David also heard this tape. So then he's starting to hear about our performances in New York, and people are talking. And then we go to, in the summer, LA, and Tony Basil brings Iggy Pop to the show and Dean Stockwell to the show. And they get the stuff to Neil Young. And it just starts building and, like a snowball.
yeah. The tape came from a suitcase. We had someone take it backstage. Jerry and Bob had someone take it backstage and give a demo tape to Billy, and he just threw it in a suitcase. And Iggy went through it because German radio was so strange in those days, and they didn't believe it was a real band. Both David and Iggy told us, yeah, we didn't think it was a real band. And so while they were working on what was the second of the two albums they did Lust for Life second.
Yeah.
The Idiot first, and then Lust for Life. And while they were working on Lust for
Right.
Life, the Hunt and Tony Sales, the bass and drummer, them and Bowie and Iggy, they were jamming on Devo songs in the studio in Germany while they were recording, and so they were like very interested even before they knew it was a real band.
And then, of course, the Brian Eno thing happened. And even though in the documentary you make it clear that maybe it wasn't like a totally smooth going experience, it's still to have be produced by Brian Eno early in your career is pretty insane.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean it was interesting juxtaposition, let's put it that way.
But with all of these, kind of very respected people, all the people you just mentioned, championing you guys early on, like I don't know. I imagine you guys were thinking like, okay, if you had any doubt you were doing something right, this was the sign that you absolutely were doing. So
yeah,
you were onto something.
yeah, it was, yeah, that felt pretty good. Yeah, that felt pretty good to
Yeah.
have.
It's vindication, it's vindication. Especially because in Ohio, all we did is meet with derision and rejection, right? People thought we were stupid. They hated us. They couldn't believe it. And we kind of returned that sentiment to them, like the kind of people that didn't like us actually motivated us to keep doing it. But then when you're finally accepted by people you respect, like artists you respect, like David Bowie, Iggy Pop, Neil Young, it's pretty exciting.
Very exciting. Yeah. So one of the quotes, Jerry, I think you say, I'm paraphrasing it, but you say when you're sort of talking about all the accomplishments Devo made and how far they did get, you say just the fact that Devo was, and is part of the culture proves you did something right. So what do you are most proud of that you got right? Or, and I guess the second part of that question would be like, what do you think you got wrong? Is there anything you'd go back and change?
Well, tons of things like that. And just beyond that, like, what you see of Devo is the tip of the iceberg of what we might have been able to do, opportunities we might have had and mediums we could have worked in. But obviously, the thing we got right was the big picture because it's withstood the test of time. Because the reason people are interested right now at all isn't because we sold 100 million albums like Elton John. It's not that. You
Mhm.
know, it's the ideas and the art. The art stands up. Like you said, $5,000 was well spent on a video. It costs more than that to restore one video that was shot in 16 millimeter film in 1978, but but now we have that content and it's 50 years later, you know.
Mark, do you have anything to add?
Well, he's right about that. We we created a band based around an idea. We were, like inspired by, pop artists, people like Andy Warhol who worked on all the different mediums, and we didn't see ourselves needing to be, just restricted to anything like that. And so we wanted to do film from the very beginning, and we did our own album covers, and we did our own artwork, and wrote the music, and even traded off things so that we could, be involved in the merchandising, and the marketing of our stuff. Um, it's like, yeah, we had, we were like, we had our batteries charged up, and we went as far as we could before we ran out of gas, and then um, we got quite a bit accomplished.
You absolutely did, but one thing I thought was the one thing I would say that was a little bit odd for me about the documentary is it ends basically after the Enigma days, wraps up basically, I guess, early 90s, I would say. And it doesn't really cover what I think has been this big renaissance for Devo. I mean, Something for Everybody was a very well received album, and I didn't even realize
Yeah.
until that it's like that was 15 years ago. I went to the cat party you had for that at Warner Brothers, um,
Mhm.
which was great. It was great. Speaking of great marketing, but yeah, it doesn't really mention. I don't think it mentions that album at all. It doesn't mention the fact that I think, had this renaissance. You've been doing all these,
Yeah. It's strange because
tours.
I know it's an alternate reality, like that never existed. And the experimental video we did that was a 360 in the round video was never shown or never mentioned. And I
Oh,
mean, there's songs on that record like Fresh and What We Do and a couple others that I think hold up to any good Devo song ever.
yeah, it was a very well. I just wonder if, well, it's like I said, it makes it seem like the band is no longer a working entity when it
Yeah.
very much is. And like I said, that record was great. I didn't realize that. I mean, it's crazy that was 15 years ago, but is there any chance for new music or anything like a new Devo album? Because I mean, I feel like your message is more relevant than ever, and I feel like we could really use some
Never
new
say
Devo.
never. Never say
Yeah.
never.
I mean, maybe a new Devo song would be enough. Just one great song.
I mean, yeah, I'd be here for it. Do you agree that I just said Devo's message is more relevant than ever or more needed
Oh
than
yeah.
ever? Do you agree?
Well, that's the
Yeah.
point. That's why it happened. That's why
Uh,
you're talking to, that's why you're talking to us.
it wasn't supposed to be that way. We were hoping that things would right themselves, and instead, we're in a time that is very peculiar right now, and you wouldn't even be able to guess that we could be where we are back in the 70s.
Yeah, it kind of ties back to what I was saying that you guys were raised in a time of optimism and progress, and you do say in the film, I believe, that you were and are, I don't know if you still are, but you were optimists at heart. There was optimism there. Are you still in 2025, or do you optimist now? Because it's obviously hard to be one at the moment.
You know what I realize is that you should just forego optimism, pessimism, and realize you still have to do what you have to do. In the early days, our posture, our pose was, this is a genetic imperative. We're
Mhm.
compelled to do what we're doing. And it was just a position like a student smart ass position. But in the end, it's actually true.
Yeah.
You know,
So, yeah, and my feeling is that Devo's message has changed a little bit in
Oh,
the last few years. It's like while we were just trying to warn people about the way it looked like things were going, it's like now it's kind of more like, okay, well, we're here, and kids are the new Devo. They're the new people living on this planet that have to figure out how to solve things. And I think our message now is mutate, don't stagnate. It's more like, they understand technology better than we do. They're less manipulated by it than you know older people, and they can see the lies, pretty easy. So, um, I, I'm hoping that our kids, everybody's kids, all like keep the Devo message at heart and then do something about it.
I hope so as
there there
well.
will always be there will always be originality and creativity and a robust creative response to tyranny, to suppression, to illegitimate authority and authoritarianism, the way we live now. Basically, when Marx said the times are peculiar, that's a very nice way to say fascism. That's what we're living under. And just his latest executive orders today took it further. Just you can expect that. You can expect now for it to go all the way.
That's why we need more Devo music. I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
if that's going to solve everyone's problems, but I mean, it would certainly hit right now. Are there any, what would you say is the Devo song or songs that's either the most relevant now or was the most prescient to where we're at now?
Well, I love freedom of choice and I love Gates of Steel and I love Beautiful World you know, in that way that you're talking about. And there could be more that I'm not thinking of right now. Maybe Mark does. I don't
Oh,
know.
those were my choices too, really, for talking about what you want to talk about. I mean, Devo, every day there's a different, for some reason or another, I think of a different song that I I appreciate or you know thought had a good message to it. But it's like, yeah, as far as talking about which way we're going and what to do about it, those three are all, like kind of the most literal.
I don't suppose any either of you ever thought about running for office or going into politics. You'd be good at it, obviously. I'd vote for you.
I don't want to be assassinated.
Fair point. Fair point. Okay, so I'll end. Thank you for all of these great answers and thank you for this documentary. Speaking of voting for, though, I'll end with this. I share this sentiment with a lot of people. I think it is a disgrace that Devo are not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame after 3 nominations. I have voted for you. Fans like me
Thank
care. I don't know if you guys care. A lot of times when I talk to bands that I feel have been snubbed or pass over, they don't really seem to really care. But how do you feel about that? And is that something you still want? Is that something you think could still happen?
I don't think we ever really cared about it as a goal. And it'd be disingenuous to say that, again, to be recognized doesn't, vindicate you somehow, or that you wouldn't like it somehow. But after 3 snubs, I think I can only speak for myself. I think we're done with caring one way or another because I have to believe those 3 snubs tell me one thing, that there is someone that actively, like on a conspiracy level, doesn't want Devo in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Hmm.
Maybe we don't fit in with those other bands, and that might be a good thing.
Possibly. It did take both the MC5 and Kraftwerk bands that I think you could connect to Devo in different ways. It took them like 6 times each. So
Hmm.
maybe you're
Yeah,
in
when
good
you see
company.
who gets in, when you see who gets in and then who doesn't get in, you're like, huh, maybe the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is a misnomer. You know.
Well, you have my vote. You're in my Hall of Fame.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, Johnny Rotten, we were talking backstage a couple of years ago. We were both playing at the same festival and
Cruel world, yeah.
Hmm.
Full World. I
You
think,
own Crow World, by the way. It was all about you and Bauhaus of the day. Everyone said those were the two best things of that day.
but this was the one before that.
First one.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
and
Sorry, go on.
The one that was less cruel. The one that was less cruel.
and somebody we had just been rejected from a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and he said, if I ever got in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I'd just have to wonder what I was doing wrong. Thought that was a
Well,
good.
the Sex Pistols are in, but they didn't attend. They
Hmm.
did not. I mean, PIL aren't in, but the Sex Pistols are one of the few artists that did not that sat out the ceremony. So, but
Mhm, mhm.
if you ever do get in, I hope you go and just play those 3 songs that you just mentioned.
Maybe we'll bring Johnny Rotten with us.
That would be a good time. Well, thank you so much for this interview, and I mean, God, thank you for everything you've done over the last 50 something years. Just thank you for doing it, and I encourage everybody to watch this documentary, and I encourage you guys if you are so inspired, yeah, new music from you guys would be very welcome right now.
Thank you. Thanks.
Have a great day, and yeah, just keep you know doing what you do because you guys are awesome.
Ah, thanks.
There it is. Keep doing what you're doing.
It's working. You're doing something right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your day, guys. Thank you for doing this.
All right.
Stay
Bye-bye.
tuned.
Bye.